Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Shankly Gates podcast. I'm your host, Kieran, and this week we're joined by just you this week, mate. Just Paul. How you doing, fella?
Hello, Kieran. I'm good, thank you, mate. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, mate. Nice to see you. I've not done a pod in a while, so good to see you, mate.
I know it's quite rare after a win, isn't it? There's normally everyone queuing up to get on. It's quite rare that there's only the two of us after a win.
I know, yeah, it's strange enough, but we'll get on with it. Plenty to talk about, and that'll be our main feature tonight anyway. The Reds and the superb 4-0 win over Arsenal at the weekend. That'll be our main feature, and as we go on, we'll touch on another big week for Liverpool, Porto in the week, and then Southampton come to Anfield next Saturday. But to start off, Paul, no complaints really. Should the 4-0 home win over Arsenal, mate, in the end all went to plan?
Yeah, I think, before the game, if you'd have said that we were going to take a 4-0 victory home, I wouldn't have believed you. I think they were in good form coming into the game. I think they were unbeaten in about 10 games. And obviously we had the disappointment at West Ham. So, I think we had a bit of a question to answer as well. So it was nice. I thought the performance it was a bit of a battle, in my opinion, for the first sort of half an hour or so. And then Liverpool clicked into gear, got the first goal. And I think in the second half, that the second goal sort of killed any into the game. And the third and fourth goals just topped it up with, some absolutely fantastic play for both the third and fourth goal. So, yeah, all went to plan. A nice 3 points, which was very important after Chelsea had won earlier on in the day. Results also mean that it was also, even more so an important 3 points. And I think as well with Arsenal's position in the table, they were sort of breathing down our neck. So it was nice to just keep that buffer on them as well.
No, absolutely, mate. Because in the build up to this one, I've obviously seen a lot of comments and a lot of pundits who were talking Arsenal's chances up this week. I know, obviously, we had to go and respect them and that, and a lot saying they could come and cause a surprise, which I wasn't necessarily disagreeing with, but I've seen them a bit this season. They did seem well set up, and I still think they do, but we just blew them away in the end, but. I just want to talk about the first half, Paul, because for me, there was one incident that I think changed the whole game completely. And that was obviously the little scrap between Klopp and Arteta on the side. Now, obviously, we were both at the game, mate. I don't know how you felt, but up until that moment, I thought the crowd were very flat. Game was going nowhere, quite dull. And I think... I'm actually going to give Klopp a lot of credit for, doing this. Maybe not, in the right way. But for me, that was the catalyst which sparked the crowd up and the players fed off it. I don't know what you thought about that, mate.
Yeah, I think so. I think, like you say, the first about half an hour or so, wasn't it? And I think, like you say, it was... I think Arsenal come with a good game plan, I'll be honest with you. They were executing it quite well. They were difficult to break down. They were the most organised Arsenal side I've seen in Anfield for 7 years at least. Or at least certainly since Arsene Wenger has left them. As I say, they come with a game plan. They had, a back four, which is a little bit stronger than it has been in previous years in personnel. Who I thought made some outstanding saves. Also got a little bit of luck as well in some of our chances in the first half, did Ramsdale. They had sort of a 4-2-3-1 formation, which was, trickled into a 4-5-1 when they didn't have the ball and they were trying to sort of hit us on the break. And I think, as I say, for half an hour, it worked for them. And then Arteta, rightly or wrongly, maybe got a little bit big for his. That was part of the game plan, was to appeal for everything, break the game up, slow down, try and get people frustrated, get the crowd quiet. And as I say, for half an hour it worked. But on this occasion, where Arteta then appealed for the foul from Sadio Mane, as a club, as a crowd, as a bench and a team, Liverpool just went, forget the shackles now. We're not having this. And as you say, I think that kick-started the crowd into defending the team, defending the manager. And the noise levels went up a couple of decibels. And I thought the tempo of the team went up by, probably 2 gears. And within a couple of minutes, Liverpool were 1-0 up. And after that point, we never really looked back.
No, mate, definitely not. So I like I said, I think it was an important moment because I think we may have struggled. We may have got a goal in the second half, but the way it was going, we weren't creating much. It was a little bit flat. So, it may have been a blessing for us. But when the goal did come, mate, towards the end of the first half, what a lovely ball in from Trent. Obviously, he goes on to get an assist for the 4th goal as well. But that's 51 assists now for Trent in a Liverpool shirt. So for the right back, mate, that's just it's just insane, isn't it?
What is he? 23. He's been around. He's been around for sort of. Well, I think Hoffenheim was his first sort of European goal, and he'd made a few appearances the season before. You're looking at probably 4 or 5 on the first team squad. And to be getting sort of an average of 10, 12 assists a season from right fullback, he's sort of redefined the position a little bit. If you go back, there's no disrespect to any of the fullbacks I'm going to mention, but I think we've had some fantastic right fullbacks. I think Steve Finnan was very, very underrated. Done a job there for many years. We've then had players even further back like Rob Jones, who were real steady Eddies. Then we've had, the likes of Vegard Hegem in the 90s, who I actually thought was a decent little fullback. And then we've also had players like, Jan Kromkamp and Yossemi and all these type of different players. And I think every one of them that I've just mentioned forward a little bit, but, their sort of primary aim was to be a defender, which, there's nothing wrong with that. You're a right fullback. So yeah, that's fine. Defend. I think Trent sort of flips that on his head, and his sort of best form of defence is to attack. It catches him out the odd time here and there. I think West Ham played on it very well a couple of weeks ago, but I thought, again, as you say, the free kick, the delivery was excellent. And I think we've also got to give, because at the game, it looked like a quite simple header from sort of 6 yards out. And actually, when you look back at it on the highlights, he was about 15 yards out, and he has bulleted it down low and sort of got it through the keeper, really. So it was it deserves a little bit more credit than we've given it.
No, man, absolutely. I haven't actually looked back on it, but I was at that end for the goal, and it did look like a decent finish. Like, it was a bit obscured. Wasn't sure how it got through. If you say it's got through the keeper, but to be still that far out, it's still going to take some effort to get past Ramsdale, who's been playing very well the last few weeks. Certainly yesterday, when he was near, that could have been 6, 7, 8 if he wasn't in goal. So yeah, it was a fantastic header. But while we're on the subject of fullbacks, Paul, I just want to get your take on the whole the left back situation, mate. Because obviously there'd been a time a couple of seasons ago, if you'd have had Andy Robertson out injured, you'd have been fearing the worst. You'd have been like, where are we going? Probably James Milner's going to play left back. But I think this season, Tsimikas has certainly come on a lot. Wouldn't necessarily say he's as good as Robertson going forward, but as you were saying, you were talking about the old fullbacks like the Steve Finnan and Rob Jones, who certainly knew how to defend. I think Tsimikas this season, certainly he knows that left back position well, defending, mate. So I want to get your thoughts on obviously Robertson being out, but the fact that Tsimikas has come in when he's needed, and I don't think he's conceded a goal. Liverpool have not conceded a goal when he's been on the pitch this season.
Yeah, I think, look, when you look at Andy Robertson, for me, you're talking about one of, if not the best left back in world football. I might be a little bit biased on that because I'm a Liverpudlian, but his overall play, we don't concede many goals from down his side when he plays. And as you say, if you go back to sort of a couple of years ago, if Andy Robertson, it was, and again, no disrespect, but it was either Alberto Moreno or like you say, it was Milner in at left back, who, yeah, they can both do a job there, that's fine. But, you know, you were taking a sort of level down once Andy Robertson was out the team. Again, you've got to give Klopp a bit of praise. He has this sort of knack of bringing players in, giving them a little bit of a taster, but allowing them sort of 6 to 12 months to bed in. And I think he's done that with Costas as well. You know, we signed him. Remarkable signing, if that makes sense. You know, it wasn't a big sort of fanfare or anything. He comes in from Olympiacos. There was rumours that he wasn't even first choice because of the lad from Norwich was supposed to be coming, who ended up going to Newcastle. And he's bided his time system. And I honestly believe we're now at the point where, and don't get me wrong, I'm certainly not saying he's Andy Robbo, but we are at the point now where if Andy Robbo can't play, I don't think we're taking a drop down in level as such, like we musician. I think he's slightly a different type of player to Robbo. I think Robbo's a lot more involved in the game in terms of his passing and his sort of energy up and down the line. I think Tsimikas is very he's still attacking. You know, when he'll whip more balls in, I think he sort of whips crosses in, whereas Robbo will sort of float them more towards the back post and things. And some of the balls he played in, I think Tsimikas was involved in at least 2 of the goals off the top of my head from yesterday. So absolutely, Andy Robbo, for me, one of the best, if not the best in the world. But if he's not playing, I'm pretty confident in what Costas can do as a backup for him.
No, absolutely, mate. And we'll touch on it later on in the show about squad depth. But I think certainly in that position, we are probably one of our strongest positions. What I've seen, certainly. We know what Robertson can do, but Tsimikas, I think, can do it just as well when he comes into the side. But we'll get back to the Arsenal game, obviously, going into the second half. You know, we need to try and kill the game off and get a second goal. And, you know, it doesn't look like much. Obviously, Jota gets presented with a golden chance, but there's still a lot of work to do there. So a lot of composure needed. And once again, it's another big goal for Jota, who, you know, I don't know his goal scoring record, but you know, it seems like it's, you know, it'd be up there with like a Mane. So, you know, how important is he, Paul, to this side?
I think it's massive because, you know, at the time when we brought him in, I think there was a little bit of talk that, you know, people were thinking the front three were getting a little bit stale. You know, as in Salah, Mane and Firmino really have much backup to them if anyone got injured and things. And again, like we've just said about Tsimikas, I think if Jota comes in for either of those three, again, I don't think it's a big drop down in level. I think Jota has come in, again, he's to settle into the squad and to sort of get used to his players around him. But he's got ability, you know, he pops up with important goals. He pops up with headers for his size. He's not the biggest of centre forwards, or if you want to call him, you know, one of the front three with headers. And then, like we say yesterday, his goal, you know, obviously the left back for Arsenal, Tavares just doesn't look where he's passing, gives the ball away, and then Jota picks it up, and you're thinking, hit it. You know, he throws the shoulder, sends Ben White, the centre half, sliding in. And even then you're thinking, you've got a great chance. Hit it, put it in the back of the net. And he just remains cool and sort of puts the goalkeeper down, slaps it into the empty net. And that, to me, you know, when you've got a team who have come with a game plan and they're battling and they're working hard, what you've got to do is you've got to match that battle. You've got to outwork them, and your ability and your quality will show through. And all killed Arsenal's hopes and chances of getting back into the game, because I think they knew at that point that Liverpool's ability and quality was starting to show through. Okay, it came from a mistake, but that mistake comes because of you know, the sort of 60 odd minutes and working and closing them down and pressing them from goal kicks and high up the pitch in their final third and things. So for me, you know, Diogo Jota absolutely is instrumental and is very, very vital for us. the front three, but also the contribution that he brings when he does play.
Absolutely, mate. I've countless times on this podcast, I say he's one of our more important players, even though he doesn't see me. He just pops up with these important goals, left, right, and centre. And he's honest, like I say, we talked about Simicast before. You could put him in any one of those positions there. He'd do the job required, if not more. But I do agree also what you said, that goal killed Arsenal. Not so much the fact it was 2-0, just the way they conceded it. Heads dropped immediately. There was arms up in the air. I think you could tell from there. And then after that, we definitely made it show, mate. That third goal, I mean, to be honest, you could probably have a contender for a goal of the month. The quick play from the back, the one and two touch down the left, and then all of a sudden it's Salah at the back post and it's 3.
Yeah, again, I think, when you're looking at team goals, and for me, it's like you say, it's the build-up that was absolutely outstanding. And again, I think Simicast was involved again. We've just mentioned him, and some of his vision for his passing is absolutely outstanding. And as you say, it comes down the left-hand side. He actually miscontrols it as he goes through and sort of kicks it too far in front of him. I'm thinking, has the chance gone? But just before he gets the ball, you see him look up. He looks up to his right and he sees Salah. He plays an absolutely inch-perfect ball, and it makes a finish for Salah. If Mane doesn't get that ball right, it can be difficult for Salah. And you know as well as I do, he prefers to use his left foot, Salah. But it was that simple of a finish for him. He was confident in just tapping it in with his right. So, yeah, at that point, the heads that were already dropped were even further, chins on chest and things, and hands on hips. And you can see defenders looking around, sort of looking for someone to blame and things like that. One thing I did notice about the goal and the Salah goal was the noise when it went in. I think the fans also knew that, those two goals were so important in the context of that game that there was a little bit of, not necessarily relief, but the noise that come out when we scored. I don't, maybe the Arsenal fans and Arteta and things that had gone on in the first half. But for me, I don't know if you felt the same, but the roar when both of them goals went in seemed to be massive. It was electric.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I couldn't agree more from where I was. Certainly, I think the Salah one especially, because it takes all the jeopardy out the game. Then with 3-0, it's pretty much gone, and certainly bouncing by us anyway. We were sat next to the I was sat next to the Arsenal fans anyway, and as soon as that goal went in, you saw them pouring out the stadium. So that everyone around me was absolutely jubilant with that. It was fantastic. But of course, obviously, it's another goal from Mo Salah. It's 11 in the league. It's not sure what it is in all comps, but I'm not sure. I've been on a pod with you and speaking about this, Paul. But his chances on the Ballon d'Or, mate, later on. For me, it's between him and Lewandowski. I think he'll be unfortunate if he doesn't win it, but on that point, Lewandowski was unfortunate not to win it last year because there wasn't one. So, just want to get your thoughts on Mohamed Salah and his chances on the Ballon d'Or this year, mate.
Yeah, I think, like you say, there's Lewandowski. I'm just one that hasn't really been mentioned, who I think is outstanding, and he has been for a good 10, 12 years, is Karim Benzema at Real Madrid. I think he scores so many important goals. But like you say, I think Lewandowski has been unlucky probably in 3 or 4 previous seasons. The amount of goals he scores, the ability he's got. I think he's just been unfortunate to be in the game at the same time as probably 2 of the best. So, but having said that, it is meant to be based on this year. So, it's not sort of based on the last sort of 10, 15 years. It's got to be supposedly, the latest sort of form in world football. Is there anybody in better form than Mo Salah at the moment? He made a promise, if you remember, sort of January, February time last season on Twitter that they would fight for every game and fight to the end to qualify. And since he made that promise, I think we've probably only lost 1 or 2 games, if that. It might be West Ham alone, I think. And he certainly delivered on that promise. You know, he's gone to another level. I think he's in his 5th season with Liverpool, and he was classed as a one-season wonder. You know, and his numbers just get better and better. His ability, you know, the coaching that he's had, and the sort of things that he's doing, and what he's always had that top level ability. Yeah, we know that, but what I mean is that the ridiculous goals he's scored are becoming more often. You know, we can go back a few years and he scored outstanding goals against Tottenham and against Everton and things like that. But actually, sort of last 6 to 12 months, you could probably name, you know, 4 or 5 outstanding, ridiculously talented goals off the top of your head. You know, and obviously the 2 that stick out from this season mainly are the Man City. But, you know, let's not forget that it's not just the goals and the assists and the things. It's the work rate, the frightening the defenders. You know, as soon as he gets the ball, defenders don't know whether to back into it. What do they do? You know, and if they go and close him, does he skip past them? Does he play it off to Mane? So for me, he's got to be. I mean, I'm not saying he'll win it, but he's got to be a very good shout.
I'd have thought so. I think for me, between him and Lewandowski, I'm not overly fussed who wins it. Obviously, I won't, you know, Mo to win it, you know, being a Red and being biased. But, you know, I think like Lewandowski, especially after last year, for me, it'd be very unfortunate. So for me, if it's either one of those, you know, I'll be made up. The final thing I want to talk about on the Arsenal game, Paul, anyway, is the midfield, mate. Which I think, for me, has been an area of concern, certainly over the last few games, not just with injuries, but with performance as well. But I thought yesterday, certainly Thiago, I thought he was fantastic. What he did in the midfield, the way he was just, you know, calm on the ball as he usually is. But I think more so his interceptions, his tracking back, his work rate I thought was second to none yesterday, mate. I don't know what you made of his performance. And of course, Fabinho and the Ox.
Yeah, I think we go back to a pod. I think it was the Brighton game, because I didn't do the West Ham one because I was on the way back. We talked about the midfield, and on that day we said that one of the issues was that Oxlade-Chamberlain and Jones are a lot more attack-minded than, you know, potentially sort of Fabinho as we played against Arsenal, and that was one of the problems. And I think yesterday, like you say, Thiago played a little bit more defensively than potentially Curtis Jones would have in that situation, which allowed Fabinho to control the midfield, and anything, as you say, that he didn't sort of sweep up, Thiago was right next to him to do the job for him. You know, and let's make no bones about it, Arsenal had 5 men in midfield, and 2 were talked about as England's next sort of golden generation for the next 10 years in Smith Rowe and Saka. And for me, I thought Liverpool done an excellent job in keeping them 2 quiet. In fact, Smith Rowe, I don't even remember him touching the ball in the Liverpool sort of final third, probably more than 2 or 3 times. And I think I agree with you. I thought Thiago's presence in the team, you know, when he got it, he kept it simple, and that's fine. That's all you need to do. And as you say, they've shored us up a little bit more. I think, unfortunately, due to injuries, we've sort of been dictated as to what midfield 3 we're playing. I know we're going to touch on Porto soon and what sort of midfield 3 we might play in that game. But I don't think for the Arsenal look at the bench, the only options in midfield on the bench were obviously Henderson, who Klopp didn't seem to think was fit enough to play 90 minutes. And then after that, it was young lad like Tyler Morton who came on. Or potentially maybe, I think Klopp said was potentially one of the solutions to 4 positions, which I'm guessing, is the front three, and also maybe a sort of midfield spot, which he has played in, for the odd sort of 10, 15 minutes here and there this season. So sort of being dictated to at the moment. It's nice to see Harvey Elliott back training and back out on the grass and stuff. And in a sense, we actually had a conversation in the pub last night after the game that, in a sense, I do think we've missed him a little bit, because I thought he'd come into the team. Klopp showed massive confidence in him, playing him in big games like Chelsea, like Leeds away, obviously where he got the injury. And I do think we've missed his sort of energy and his vision, and his ability in midfield. I really do. So it's nice to see him coming back. Obviously back. We've got Milner to come back in there. But I do still think we potentially need another one in January as well, I'll be honest with you. So, yeah, the midfield was dictated to, and I thought it sort of controlled with help from the front three. The front three sort of, there wasn't a massive gap between them when Arsenal had the ball. There was only sort of 10 yards between the midfield three and the front three. And that then became a bit of a sort of block of 6, which was very, very difficult to get through.
Yeah, man, there's a good analysis that, man. I agree. The amount of times Arsenal struggled to try and pass the way out of the press. Got out a couple of times, but I think obviously the mistake from the second goal was caused by that. I thought, they were absolutely excellent. Certainly there. And, I go back, lovely to see how you touch on Harvey Elliott there. I agree, mate. You wouldn't have thought it at the start of the year, but, what he did early on, the little glimpses that we saw, I wouldn't have, if you said at the start of the season we'd be missing him come November, December, I wouldn't have believed you. But absolutely, mate, and to see him back training as he is, considering what happened, I think it's, quite remarkable, really. But anyway, mate, we're going to move on. You did touch on it. Liverpool's back in Champions League action on Wednesday as Porto come to Anfield. Obviously, we've already qualified with top of the group with 2 games to go, which was a fantastic position to be in. I mean, we are beyond our wildest dreams, really. But obviously, when you get to that situation, the first thing that comes to people's minds, obviously, is rotation, because we do have quite a lot of fixtures coming up, especially in the next few weeks. There's 9 rounds of Premier League fixtures in the next 60 days, I think, or so, I think less than that. So, but the question is, Paul, what sort of side does he put out? Because, yeah, I don't think you can fully rotate because of injuries. You have a look at the bench from the Arsenal game. It was Canati, Henderson, Minamino, and then it was quite a youthful bench. So how do you think Jurgen's going to balance this one, Paul? He can't just completely, rotate everybody. It's going to be, potentially a half and half team. Do you think?
To be honest with you, I don't think we've got much choice. I know there's been sort of mentions around you get £2.5 million for every game you win in the group stage. So obviously, if you look at Porto at home and AC Milan away, you're looking at £5 million, which I'm guessing FSG will do your best to win that. We want it in the bank and so on and so forth. But I think if you look at, like we've said, I think, and I may be wrong here, but I think between now and the 2nd of January, which is Chelsea, I think that will be our 12th game between now and then. 5-6 weeks, it's a lot of football to be played. So for me, I think, I would look at a bit of what I would call, and I don't mean this as any disrespect, what I would look at maybe like a bit of a League Cup side. Will go as changed as that. Because again, I think the midfield will sort of be dictated by who is fit. But I would be looking, I think, definitely at maybe even bringing Kelleher in, to give him a bit of experience in the Champions. I said that the group has already won. Our position in that can't change. We're already top of the group. I think a back four maybe of, I think if Joe Gomez is fit, I don't think he was on the bench on Saturday.
No, he wasn't.
Needs more minutes, so we can look at Canate and maybe Joe Gomez if he's fit. If not, maybe even throw Nat Phillips in. I've got no problem in Nat Phillips being in there. I think he's got the ability to deal with it. I'd maybe potentially look at Nico Williams at right back. I know he's not had much game time. I thought he done okay and played well for Wales last week. I think left back, I think we're probably going to be dictated to, and we'd have to leave maybe Kostas Tsimikas in there, because, and maybe bring Andy Robbo on for the last half an hour for a bit of fitness if he's coming back from an injury. Probably going to be dictated to us who's fit and who needs the minutes. Do we risk sort of Thiago again with him just coming back from a sort of 6-7 game layoff? Do we put Fabinho in there and risk any games coming up, or do we look at maybe giving Henderson, because he's just come back from a little knock? Do we put him in there? Or is it just that there's only going to be 3 or 4 fit, and it's basically what we can scrape together? And then the front three, I think Minamino and Origi if he's fit, and potentially again maybe one of the other three of the sort of main lads who you can maybe rotate at half time if you want, or whatever, because it's in the Champions League as well. So that'll help us in terms of, managing lads' fitness and things. I'm just trying to think whether, because obviously I know Firmino's had an injury and wasn't available Saturday. So do we need the minutes? Do we rest Mane and Salah? For me, it's not so much injuries and things, but there's bookings and sending offs and things like that, which, I know Klopp touched on it, that the likes of Atletico Madrid and things were trying to get Mane sent off and stuff like that. I like that. But for me, I don't know if it's worth the risk. And, as I say, it's not going to make any difference on the final outcome other than a couple of extra £1 million in the bank.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the only thing I can really use for reference for this is obviously the last game of the group last year when we played Midtjylland last year. Obviously, I think was it Salah who got injured in it, I think? Or was it Jota? I can't remember which one.
Yeah, we went away and Jota got injured, didn't he? He ended up being there.
So I'm not sure if that'll be at the back of his mind, because obviously he was going strong in that game, obviously, to win the prize money for it. I agree with you, Paul. I'd like to see, maybe not a League Cup, but like a League Club plus team, a couple of senior lads, but mostly youth. But I think Jurgen will put a relatively strong team out. I think. Not sure which ones to rotate. All that. I think for me, Hendo will come back in and start. For me, even if he only gets an hour. There's, like you say, good thing in the Champions League, you get 5 subs, so you've got the chance for rotation there, definitely. But what he does with the rest, it's really up to him, really. I'll be at the game Wednesday. I'm not too bothered how it goes. I mean, you could call me an arse, but if Porto do win, that narrows Atletico Madrid's chances. That really puts the pressure on them. And if we have to play them later in the competition, I know I'd rather play this definitely Porto. So it'd be definitely interesting to see which way he goes. To me, I think a couple of players will be still itching to play. I think, Mo Salah will be itching to play. I think as we go back to, we talk about him winning the Ballon d'Or, that's the sort of game that people are going to, tune in to watch. He scores a hat-trick there, something like that. That's the sort of thing that's obviously going to get noticed if obviously it hasn't already. So there's a lot of things to factor in here. It's completely trust Jurgen with what he does, but I think it will. Not sure how many. Maybe it's sort of 5 or 6 change. I agree with what you were saying. Certainly centre back Canati, certainly give him a go. Nat Phillips as well. He was on the bench at the weekend. Deserves his go. Well, he got us there last season, so absolutely no issues there. Yeah, Neco Williams, I'd definitely give Trent a rest, certainly after the international break as well. I'd have Hendo in there. I'd have a look at Tyler Morton. He's definitely been around the first teams, and got a lovely 10 minutes at the end against Arsenal there. So yeah, happy enough there. Going forward, Minamino I think's going to be the one that starts, but I think he will. I think it'll be one which he'll give Salah an hour, I think, or so. Just I think that's the hand that he'll be forced to play anyway. But obviously we've already qualified, so it doesn't make too much of a difference. But still be nice if we can win the game, be good experience for the kids, I suppose. But
I think it's difficult because it's one of them, isn't it? It's just one of them where, Liverpool win every game, of course we do, but there's a bigger picture here, like we've just said, that between now and sort of the 2nd of January, that'll be the first of a run of, I think, 11 or 12 games. So, can you take a sort of weakened team, and I use the word weakened very loosely, but, a half sort of weakened team, if, and it's a big if, you sort of go on Saturday to Southampton and put in a great performance. So it's a bigger picture, I think.
Yeah, mate. I mean, I think certainly that Michelin game, that's got to be at the back of his mind. What happens? So, we'll wait and see. Hopefully, he'll get it spot on anyway. But like you mentioned, Paul, we are another busy week for the Reds. We are going to touch on next Saturday's game. So yes, Southampton coming to Anfield. So just want to get your thoughts on this one, mate. This type of game doesn't necessarily worry me, but then I think back to the likes of Brentford away, Brighton at home, to an extent West Ham away, where we've dropped bad points, more so Brentford and certainly Brighton. These sort of games, they don't necessarily worry you too much, but we simply can't afford to be dropping any more points at all, can we?
No, and I think you're quite right to mention it, that there's been games this season, like you just mentioned, such as sort of Brentford, Brighton, and potentially West Ham, where you're going into the game thinking we should be winning this game, and that's no difference on Saturday, and that's no disrespect to Southampton. I sort of can't really put my finger on Southampton because you look at them sometimes and they try and play some good football. They attack, they try and play the ball wide, sort of Theo Walcott and stuff, and get crosses into the box. And, they've got sort of like James Ward-Prowse who can sort of dictate play, and he's great at free kicks and things. And then other times you look at them and they just look a mess, and sort of dominated the game from what I'd seen against Norwich yesterday, but come away with a 2-1 defeat, and you're thinking, which Southampton is going to turn up. But I think for us, from our point of view, it's all down to us. It's all about Liverpool and what. I think if we turn up with the same attitude that we did in potentially, the Brighton game and certainly the Brentford game, where it was a bit of a sort of, we're going to turn up and we're going to win. We only have to turn up. We'll score the goals and we'll go home. Then we might come up with the respect for Southampton that they deserve. But, going out and playing the right way and sort of attacking with tempo and movement in front, then for me, we've got to be looking to win the game. And as you say, we more points at this stage. You go further on down the line, you may be able to afford to drop points, but as it stands today, Liverpool can't afford to drop any points. It's sort of between now and Christmas, really.
No, mate, I completely agree, mate. We have dropped some silly points, and they will add up towards the end. I mean, you look at it now, we're 4 points off. I even sort of bring the City game in. I think we should have held on there, but it's City. They're going to score goals against anyone. We should be level with Chelsea, if not in front of them at the minute. You just hope that the type of points you drop from those games, they're not going to cost you. But like you say, mate, Southampton, they are a funny one. Like the days where they'll turn up and be fantastic, and then they've been beaten 9-0, in the last 2 seasons, which they do manage to stay up every year, and that's the reason why Hasenhüttl's still in the job. But they have those sort of just nightmare games where they get an early red card and the team goes to pieces. So I do agree with you. It depends what Southampton turns up, but I think we've got to be, dominant from the off. We've got, almost be like the old sort of Liverpool where, like we did to United, just, try and blow them away in the first half an hour, I think, mate.
We get the ball and we can dictate play and we can dictate the tempo, then we can, especially at Anfield, we can make it a long 90 minutes for them. But like you say, it's one of them that, for me, it depends not just what Southampton turns up, it depends what Liverpool turn up. I know you should take each game as it comes and take one game at a time, but I also think that it might be dictated to in terms of what midfield we can put out against Southampton. Is there going to be any more injuries? Is there going to be anybody from injury that we've had missing from the last few weeks? Are we going to have to put in young lads like Tyler Morton because other lads need a rest because they've played yesterday against Arsenal and then against Porto? So it's difficult. Got to look at each game as it comes, but I think when they're coming so thick and fast, sometimes you might have to just take your eye off the ball a little bit and sort of have a look at the game after the next one. If that makes sense.
Yeah, sort of in a way, yeah. Try and box clever, because I think after that we've got run of fixtures: Wolves, the Merseyside derby. The derby's next week, isn't it? Which on a Wednesday night, which is definitely is going to be, thinking of. Then you got Wolves after that, and I'm not too sure after that. So I think we do play like Saturday, Wednesday. So it's going to be that type of thing really. But obviously, we have come out, most games from the blocks, like we said, and we have sort of blown teams away in that first half. But like those times where we have dropped points and they have been from winning positions, is that something that worries you, mate? And what do you put it down to? Do you put it down to these injuries? Do you put it down to lack of legs in midfield because of it?
I think that is a massive part of it. If you look at the Brentford and the West Ham games, for me, they were very, very similar. And they, a lot of their chances and their goals. Okay, I know West Ham's come from corners, but the sort of chances that led to those corners running through midfield. I don't want to sort of keep going over spilt milk and things, but I think Gini Wijnaldum is a big miss for us. He sort of covered that ground a lot more than we've sort of seen this season. Harvey Elliott, in his infancy, has shown glimpses of being able to cover the ground and cover them yards and sort of, if you like, do two jobs at once. Get up and support attacks, but then also when we can help out with Fabinho and things. Like we've just mentioned, I think Thiago done that superbly against Arsenal yesterday, and I think credit to Brentford and Brighton and West Ham exploited that gap in between the midfielders and sort of in front of our fullbacks, if that makes sense. And at times, especially against Brighton, there was like sort of 3 or 4 running at Canate on his own. So yeah, I think it has a massive, and I think, like you say, that has been dictated to because of what injuries we've had. We've got to, sometimes you've got to sort of fill gaps and things. And I think, it's all, one thing I will say is that players are starting to, they've now been out for 4, 5, 6 weeks, depending on which individual we're talking about. They are starting to come back to training and starting to get back into some sort of fitness. So hopefully they'll all start coming back into the squad for the busy Christmas period and cut that issue that we've had over the last couple of weeks.
No, mate. Yeah, if you're gonna, I think now more than ever, it's the time to come back. It is now. Like every year, end of November, December, it's manic. It's certainly around the Christmas time, it's going to be chaos. So to have basically as many people as possible in the squad is going to be a big bonus for us. Certainly, not just us. You look at our 2 rivals, Chelsea and City. They've got that depth. They'll be able to rotate. But much better than we are. The lads they're going to bring in, and are just a lot better quality than us at the minute. But that's the way it's been for us. Certainly the last few years, we usually seem to cope with it. So I've got full confidence in it, and is hoping to first and foremost a win Wednesday, a win Saturday, and then we go from there. But anyway, that's all we've got time for on this week's edition of the Shankly Gates podcast. My thanks to Paul. Thanks, Paul, mate.
Very much. It's a pleasure as always.
Cheers, mate. It always is. Thank you. So, like we say, a busy week for the Reds. Hopefully, we'll be back next weekend when we'll be reviewing the Southampton game, and then just a small match, I think, of the Merseyside derby to preview. So make sure you tune in for that one, everyone. And thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you soon.